Ooh. Remember to drink responsibly, kids. Happy 2-year anniversary, y'all. Oh boy, is that strong. Might be hammered by the end of this video. You're also very precariously balanced on a bunch of stuff, so if the angle suddenly shifts, it's because it's fallen over. I may have been making videos for 2 years, but my filming skills are still at -10. Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Katie, and today I'm celebrating my 2-year AuthorTube anniversary. We've come a long way in 2 years. Gamed a lot of you lovely friends, streamed a lot with the troublemakers, have posted a lot of videos, and have gone through a lot of existential crises. I've also written a book and a half? No. Yeah, no, probably 2 books collectively. Not 2 full books, but 50,000 words in one project, 50,000 words in another one, and 100,000 words of another project. So I've written 2 books since last year. So welcome to the channel. Anyway, as per usual, we're doing a Q&A. I did a Q&A last year, and I'm doing a Q&A again this year. I will remind y'all, this is what y'all picked. In October, I got the community tab, and I asked a poll for you guys what I should do, and y'all wanted another Q&A, so here's a Q&A. Might just be an annual thing. I'm wearing the shirt that I wore in my first ever filmed video, and I got a bunch of questions, so let's just jump into it. I'm gonna be drinking. Grab yourself a cup of tea, grab yourself a beer, grab yourself a cocktail, really whatever you want. But this might be long, so sit back and relax and hopefully enjoy. I also didn't plan anything for this video, except for the questions. So last year, at least, I planned out some of my answers, but this year we're flying completely off the cuff, and this might get messy by the end. So I have 4 categories of questions that people sent me on Instagram and on my community tab post where I said I was doing a Q&A. Y'all left your questions, and so I'm now going to be answering them. Y'all should know how a Q&A works by now. We've all been on YouTube since the dawn of time. The first category, unshockingly, since this is a writing channel, is writing. First question is favorite and least favorite romantic scene you've ever written. I've actually thought about this one quite a bit because, in case you didn't know, I've actually made a pivot in my plans and am pursuing writing a contemporary romance series. I know, just absolutely crazy. If you've been here since the beginning, you know that's just fucking ludicrous of me to say. But I am. This is my truth, and I'm living it. So, my favorite romantic scene is a scene I wrote in Cruel Summer, and it is a massage scene. One of the mechanics in the world that I created for Cruel Summer, it's a soulmate AU if you didn't know, but a soulmate's touch is healing, and one of the characters is a little bit injured, mostly just achy and like having a bit of a problem with a sore hip. And another character who is his soulmate gives him a very intimate massage, and it's very nice, and they talk about stuff, and like it was one of my favorite scenes to write, and I still love reading it. I think that might be my favorite romantic scene. It's either that or there's another scene later in the book that's very kind of inconsequential, but one of the characters has lost a tennis match. It's a tennis book, and the other character comes over and brings his favorite food, and then they have like this cute moment because it's like really sweet that he like brought his favorite food. Anyway, you get 2 answers for the price of 1 on that one. My least favorite romantic scene that I've ever written. Oh, I don't know if it's a least favorite, but the one that hurt me the most is there is a scene in The Wrath King where 2 of the characters have sex. One character gives another character a hand job. Anyway, we're adults here, as you should be if you have an adult beverage. Should have been a lot drunker for this question. And while I like the scene and I think it's well written, there's an element of sadness to it because one character breaks up with the other character, and like, you know, in context it makes sense, but it was very difficult writing like this very like emotional scene that's like supposed to be romantic and like has my favorite like sick person taking care of the other one trope, and then they break up, and it made me very sad. So that's my least favorite scene that I've ever written. Next question is, what is your guilty pleasure trope? A trope that a lot of people seem to hate, but despite this, you love to read or write it. My guilty pleasure trope is the teenagers are the chosen one trope. I actually really like that trope. My personal explanation of it is I think sometimes teenagers are the only ones with the audacity to save the world. So it's a little bit believable for me because I wouldn't be able to save the world, but you know what? I, at 17, had the audacity and would have been able to, maybe. Because teenagers, they're their frontal cortex isn't completely developed yet, so they make stupid decisions like trying to go save the world, you know? It's a trope I play with quite often. It's in the Eclipse Project. It's in the elemental superhero story I talked about 2 weeks ago. It's a thing. The next question is, are there any animal companions / pets in your whips? I have two for this. I have two answers for this. The one is in the Wrath King, one of the main characters, she is given a very poisonous snake. That is the crest for her family, is a specific kind of snake called a Bright Fang. It's a fantasy snake. It's like super huge and silver and poisonous. And she is given this snake and she tames it and has it like a pet because she is actually immune to the venom. She's been trained to be immune to the venom. She's not just born immune to the venom. The snake's name is Nerium, which is the scientific name for oleander, which is one of the most poisonous plants on the earth. So it's a little Easter egg. I hope that's correct, because if it isn't, that's gonna be embarrassing, but I'm not gonna look it up. So, and the second pet is actually a dog that is in Too Cruel to Summer, which is the sequel that I'm writing. It's a whole thing anyway. And this dog is a very old dog. I wrote this dog into the scene because I thought it would make sense for the character to own a dog, but then I was like, he's an international tennis player who like travels around all around the world. Why would he have a dog? So it ended up being his sister's dog, or he found the dog on a boardwalk and then brought it home, and his sister like absconded with it. But they do own a dog. His name is Ace, so, because I'm fucking dorky, okay? Anyway, here's the face claim for the dog. So I know that's what you want to see, so. Isn't he cute? He's adorable. Next one is a tandem question, which is, what fantasy creature would you be and what type would you want to be? So I think if I was a fantasy creature, I would end up being something like the Loch Ness Monster. Do I really want to say this on the internet? Yeah, fuck it. If you're watching this video, you care too much about me. Anyway, if you're watching this video, you probably already know this about me. My real last name is really long and hard to spell, so I'm not going to be using it for my pen name. However, this name means like people of the loch, people of the lake, people of the swamp. It's a whole thing. Swamp Keeper, it's my like cryptid name. Anyway, I would probably end up being a creature like this, which basically means I'd end up being a giant fucking catfish, which if you see me without my eyebrows on, you might already call me a catfish. That's probably what I would end up being, is like the Loch Ness Monster or some kind of sea creature. Maybe a Leviathan. Ooh, I would love to be a Leviathan. Although, isn't he a demon? I don't know. The type that I would want to be though, I would love to be a creature with wings, or with a creature with the ability to fly. So like a dragon, a griffin, a phoenix. I think those would be pretty cool. So that's what type I would want to be, is something with wings, because I think it'd be fun to fly. Also a phoenix, they get reincarnated after they die, or like rebirthed into a new thing, so I would never die. But I'd get to be a cool bird with fire wings. The next question. When writing fantasy, which part of world building do you draw from reality versus imagination? I think for this, I am very much someone who goes a little bit half and half. I like to start with things that are based in reality, but then twist them to something that is cool, something that's interesting. I think for me, I tend to start more with religions when I'm world building. So I'll take a concept of a religion and then most of the time add magic to it, because I think magic and religion are wrapped up and entangled in our own world. So I like to do that here, as well as do it with science as well. World building for me is very much built from a place of what is going to be most interesting and what can I play with? And then I kind of spiral out from there. And I do like to take inspiration from reality because I think that just makes it more grounded, more fleshed out, more realistic. But at the same time, if there's something I don't like in reality, most of the time I'm not going to put it in my books. I tend to take out things that I don't like from my world building because I hate it. Because I don't like it, because I don't want to write that. And most of the time when I write, it is about escapism. I do talk a little bit about world building in my All About My Novel video for the Eclipse Project, which has a lot of good interesting things in there that I talk about world building. So if you want to hear me my blather about it more, you can watch that. But one of the things I talk about is a lot of the things that I'm drawing inspiration from are often reactions to things that are happening in our world. For example, I was talking about in that video 60s fashion, which in a way oftentimes mirrors the political things that were happening in that time period. So unfortunately, there is an interesting, tricky line to walk with. Is this specific thing that I'm trying to put in there make sense if it's a reaction to something else that's happened within the world? Does that kind of make sense? Like, all of the things that happen in our world do not happen in a vacuum. So in world building, I oftentimes have to trace specific things that I want to pull from our world backwards to see kind of where the origin point is, because most of the time it's a very specific origin point or a very specific political movement or something like that. And then I have to kind of figure out if it works within the narrative that I'm trying to tell. Again, 90% of the stuff probably won't even end up in the book, but I'm very detail oriented in that way. And I'm very detailed when it comes to historical correctness. So it's one of my many toxic traits that Miranda gets on me constantly about, because she says
you don't need to be historically accurate.
And I say
I do.
Long story short, it's a little bit of both, but if I have to use my imagination to come up with something, I will most of the time do that, which is why fantasy is oftentimes very exhausting, and I think I got myself burnt out on it. Next question is, who is your favorite character you've ever written and why? I love this question so much because I love my characters truly, genuinely, with all of my heart. And this is very difficult for me, I think. And I think my favorite character that I've ever written is twofold. It's more of like a scenario thing that I've written. They're from the Eclipse Project, and it is the mentor character and his best friend from childhood. Basically, they're two of my favorite characters I've ever written. They have a very distinct chemistry together and a very specific history that very much entangles them, but at the same time, they have a love-hate relationship with each other. A lot of things in the past have very severely damaged them because the Eclipse Project world is incredibly brutal at times, especially for these specific two characters who were said to stop the apocalypse, and they both failed 10 years ago before the events of the actual Eclipse Project. If you've been visiting our Troublemaker streams, this is the mentor character that I talk about all the time, and this is his best friend, Cree. She is a bitch and I love her. I've talked about her a lot. She's actually one of the first characters I ever created in a very old world that was very Tolkien-esque that I wrote when I was about 13 or 14. I have since lost all of the shit that I had for it because it was on an old computer, which a lot of my ideas have been lost to the great abyss, the great ether beyond Windows 9. I think they're two of my favorite characters I've written. I've written a lot of snippets with them, a lot of their interactions, because I love writing scenes that are rich and full of history. It's one of my favorite things to do. If one of your projects could be turned into a Netflix series, which one would you choose? So this is an interesting question because it's twofold for me. One, which one would I like to see most adapted because of the sheer volume of it? And I'd love to see it be Game of Thrones, except not completely butchered at the end, hopefully. Thanks, still salty about it. Or would I like to see it adapted because I want to see the actual content adapted? So I think those are twofold of whether I want to see the world adapted or the content adapted. I think for the one that I want the world to be adapted, I would love to see the Eclipse Project. I haven't even written the fucking book, but I would love to see it adapted as a Netflix show. It's so vast, it's so grand. I feel like it would honestly probably work better as a TV show than as a book, but I'm not a screenwriter, so I'm not gonna be writing the script for it because I have way too much stuff for it, and I just would love to actually just write the fucking book. If I could ever get past my writer's block, but who fucking knows about that. But content-wise, the one I'd love to see the content for would of course be the Soulmate AU series, which at the moment has five books. So I would love to see that adapted. Netflix, if you want a tennis romance with soulmates, call me. Our operators are standing by. The next question is, would you ever take the risk of writing in a genre you thought you'd never write in if you had this very awesome idea to make a book out of it, though it's not the genre you usually like to read from? I am actually doing this currently. This is me with contemporary romance. I am not a contemporary romance girly. I think I've read like only a couple of contemporary romances. That said, I have read a lot of fantasy romances, and like, I'm not new to romance, but I am new to contemporary. Next question is, do you think having a spectacular imagination is enough for you to write a book based on just that? Or is it necessary for you as a writer to read in that genre to get a taste of experience? Is solely counting on your imagination with not much background considered enough? What is more important to you? So essentially, to boil this question down, it is asking, do you think having spectacular imagination is enough, or should you be reading in the genre? And is your imagination enough to start writing a book? I think what's most important to me is why I'm trying to tell the story. This is something I've been trying to discover recently. This is not something I've done before in the past, but it is something I've come to kind of try to figure out as I try to boil down what my actual themes are within a story and like why certain elements keep popping up. I think it's a nice way of self-reflection. Self-reflection is very difficult for me because I like to pretend that I don't exist. Like, I like to pretend that the me as a corporeal human is distinctly different than the art that I create, and that's just simply not true. It's simply delusional for me to think that, but delusion. Convince yourself. And I've been convincing myself for 23 years. I think in general, having a spectacular imagination is something that is harder to cultivate. I think some people are born with an amazing imagination and they're able to come up with the most incredible things. But I also think at the same time, if you're not able to execute those amazing things, it is a problem. Because if you're not executing correctly, if you are not engaging with the reader, and if you are not telling the story you want to tell, and having it conveyed to another person or multiple people or just an audience in general, that ends up becoming a problem because they don't see your vision. And of course, art is subjective, so someone out there might see your vision, you know, or there's someone out there who doesn't. So, you know, art is subjective in general, but I think being able to execute, being able to edit your book into more than just your vision and more than just your imagination and layering on details that go beyond imagination is really helpful. However, at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, having genre expectations are sometimes really comforting because you know what you're getting into, you kind of know the structure of things, and if you study a genre for a while, you will come to expect certain things, and those certain things can make it easier to write a book. I think this is oftentimes why a lot of newer writers or younger writers or people who haven't been writing their entire lives look to craft books to tell them how to write a book, because they're looking for those boundaries in order to tell their story. That's not a bad thing. That's actually quite a smart thing to do. I will say though, as like a slight sidebar into a slightly different conversation, that if you're writing about experiences that are not your own and are from a marginalized group, you should be doing your research and should be using information that is accurate to those people. You should be getting sensitivity readers, and you shouldn't be just solely relying on your imagination for that. We all have inherent biases that color the way that we see the world and the way that we write as well. So I think by having a background in learning those things is obviously going to be important. So just as a small sidebar into that conversation, but to circle back to the imagination, I think having a very vivid imagination helps with writing. I don't think it's necessary. I think it is possible for you to cultivate an imagination that you may not have now. So if you feel like I'm not very imaginative, you can still write a book. As long as you have a story to tell, you can always write a book, because a book is not written in one draft as much as I would like it to be. It's more like a painting upon which you add more and more layers, and you add more and more layers of paint, and eventually it fully comes to the surface and you have an edited book that hopefully gives you what your vision was originally. What is more important to me personally? I think it is having imagination. I would like to think that I have a pretty vivid imagination and I come up with a lot of interesting things, but I do not solely rely on my imagination to write a book. So I hope that answered your question, and hopefully maybe that sparked some interesting thoughts in your head, just some food for thought, as the discussion of art is always subjective and always changing and always moving, and you know, there's always more topics that can be considered because everyone has a different point of view. So. And the last writing question is advice for anyone considering a genre shift, like you did with your secret projects. Thank you so much for this question, because I have been thinking about this one a lot. This is another one that's been snagged up here in the brain that I've been thinking about whilst considering this video, because I was supposed to have this out on Tuesday and I'm filming it on a Friday. It's supposed to be out last Tuesday, so it's fine. Anyway, keeping with the YouTube schedule. My advice is twofold. One of which was told to me by a friend who had heard this from an actual author who writes romance. That is to commit to the bit. Commit to what you're writing. And I think this is true for every genre, not just romance, but I think committing to the bit is important, first of all. I know it can be scary to shift genres, especially if you've never written it before, but at the same time, you have to commit to it. And my advice would be to write down all of the scenes and all of the things that make you excited about this specific project. Because oftentimes when we're like, oh, I'm gonna shift to this genre, there's usually an idea that comes with it. Like if I had never had my Cruel Summer idea, I would have never started writing contemporary romance, just a fact. Like if I didn't have fantasy ideas, I wouldn't be writing fantasy. Like I'm not writing sci-fi because I don't have any sci-fi ideas. I do believe it's important to come back to what has excited you about this idea in the first place. Why do you want to write it? What is so special about it to you specifically? And it can be cliche, it can be cheesy, it can be stupid. For example, my outline for Cruel Summer was 78 words, and it was just scenes that I was excited about writing. And now as I'm getting more into revision, I'm writing down the things that really excite me. I wrote a query letter for Cruel Summer, and it is a guideline for me to really understand what makes this project so special to me and why I love writing it. Because I think when we write in a comfortable genre, all of the things we love about it kind of become background noise. They're already inherently there. We're already thinking about them in the backs of our brains. Like we're very used to them. We're very comfortable with the reasons why we love a specific genre. But then when you shift to something wildly different, it can be a little bit scary, and you can kind of lose sight of what am I doing here in this landscape that I've never seen before. That would be my advice, part of my advice. I would also say that if you are shifting genre, I would ask yourself why, like what about this story interests you? Really interrogate how this genre is going to fit into your current writing routine. Because something I have found is that when I'm writing romance, I'm writing it completely differently than how I write fantasy. And in a lot of ways, writing contemporary romance is a lot fucking easier than writing fantasy. So think about what is your relationship to the genre going in and what do you want to get out of it? For example, for me, when I started writing Cruel Summer, I really just wanted an escape. It was very much this idea that had kind of infected my brain, and I was feeling really down about writing. I had been for months, and literally my writing friends were telling me about it, like, you just don't seem like you have any passion for anything anymore. And it was really coming through in my writing. Like, my prose was stilted, my prose was stiff, like it was good, but there was no life to it, there was no meaning. I didn't have any passion to it. So that was a problem that I was facing. I think for me, the reason why I was shifting genre was because I was feeling burned out in my original genre that I was writing in. And so I wanted something that was fresh, something that was new, and something that was going to take my mind off the fact that I felt like I was an utter failure in my current genre. I know this is probably no surprise to anyone, but I failed with my first book, In the Query Trenches, and I think it really did affect me more than I thought. And now looking back on it, I think that was definitely something that very much was in my brain at the time. So I think I wanted a clean break from that writing version of myself, and shifting genres was really what was integral to that. And I kind of found my love of writing again, which makes me a little bit worried for querying this book in August, but that's the way that writing is. It's the way that it goes. We love writing, and if you love writing, you're gonna keep going, you're gonna keep trying. But I do think sometimes we can get burned out on things, and we can feel like we've lost our path, feel like failures, and I think that's okay. So that was really integral to my genre shift. Now, your genre shift may be entirely different to that. You may be sitting there like, wow, that's nothing to do with what I'm doing. But I would think to yourself, is there a specific reason why you want a break from your current genre and you're shifting into something else? And if it is as simple as, I just want to write a fluffy rom-com, that's totally cool too. You don't need to have any deep, reflective reasons why you're switching genres. I think understanding why you want to do that is an important aspect of fully committing to the bit, to circle all the way back to my original answer for this question. I hope that helps in some way. I'd love to talk more about this topic, so if there's any more questions, I'll talk about them in the comments, and maybe I'll make a video about it, a full video about it, because I think it does go hand in hand with my own failure in the query trenches, which it's a rite of passage for the author community, so fucking cheers to that. Oh, God, I love rum. So delish. So we have 3 questions in the next category. To move away from serious writing topics, let's move on to the 4 questions in my category that I'm just calling ridiculous, because my friends are ridiculous and funny, and I love them so much. The first question is, who is your favorite troublemaker, and why is it Wallace? Which was sent in by one person. And then there's a second one sent in by someone different, which is, who's your favorite troublemaker, and why is it Wallissimo? No cop-out answers. To give you an answer of why it's Wallissimo, I'm gonna say it's Wallissimo because, Wallace, you spent 10 hours working through the absolute bullshit draft of the first draft of The Wrath King, and I will forever be grateful for that. So my runner-up / tied for first is obviously Devasia, for following by that criteria, because she's also read The Wrath King and many other things, whereas Stieg is only reading my horny gay shit, so it's fine. Anyway, in truth, I love all of the troublemakers equally and in different ways. But no, seriously, my favorite troublemaker is Tom Tom. I answered that last year. And the final ridiculous question, which, oh boy, I'm gonna get in trouble for this one. It is a fuck, marry, kill question that has 3 tennis players. Because for those of you who don't know, tennis is an interest of mine. I love tennis very much. And so someone asked me, fuck, marry, kill on Stefanos Tsitsipas, Matteo Berrettini, or Andrei Rublev. And so I've thought about this long and hard, deeply, with every fiber of my being. But the answer is I'm going to fuck Matteo Berrettini because, wow. Marry is going to be Andrei Rublev because I genuinely think I could probably fix a lot of the problems that were wrong with him if I could just talk to him for a couple minutes, because that man is fucking, that man's a maniac. And unfortunately, this means I would kill Stefanos Tsitsipas. I'm so sorry, Steph. I love you, but in the face of the other 2, I truly can't. I'd have to yeet you off the cliff like Thanos. So sorry to get the soul stone. Anyway, next! We only have a couple more questions, people. We're almost there. And I did, in fact, bring up a second drink, but I don't think we're gonna be making it to that because I'm drinking this a lot slower than I thought. We're gonna power on. I'm gonna take a big sip here. Lovely. Next up is the YouTube category, where I got 2 questions about YouTube, which is fun because I love talking about YouTube in this meta way. Even though, yes, I know it's annoying that YouTubers talk about YouTube, but y'all asked. Y'all fucking asked. So the first question is favorite video you've ever made. This is difficult. This was a good one. So for this one, I have 3 answers. And since this is my Q&A, I'm gonna answer with all 3 because I want to. So the favorite video that I've ever recorded and ever had the experience recording of is definitely my autumn writing blog from back in October when I went on the writing retreat with Wallace, Jessica, and Grapefry. This was probably my favorite video to record because it was so much fun just being there and having the atmosphere, and it was a beautiful place, a beautiful area, and just everything I could have ever wanted in a writing retreat. Loved making that video. Loved the actual act of filming it because it was so much fun to film because it was just so gorgeous everywhere. My favorite video that I've ever edited, though, is also a video I made from that time, which is my drunk writing challenge video. I loved editing this video so much because it was so funny. I still go back and watch that video and laugh because I find it hysterical. Hysterical. Literally, I laugh at it still to this day. I think it's just so funny. I think it was a moment. The fact that I captured the bee saga on camera, and it was so much fun to film. It was so much fun to make. It was so much fun to edit because, again, it was so much fun to relive those memories, most of which I had forgotten because, like today, I'm drinking. And finally, I think my favorite video that I've ever made ever, which was a pain in the ass to edit, was a pain in the ass to film, but overall, I think I love the result of it so much that I just forgive the fact that it was a pain in the ass to make. And that would be my all about my novel video about the Eclipse Project. I just loved writing the script for this video. I love watching that video. I think that video is one of the best ones I've ever made. You may disagree. It's 30 minutes of me talking about a project that I'm currently not working on, but I really do love talking about that project. It is a project of my heart, I think, and I keep coming back to it despite the fact that it does not love me back. But it was a fun video to write the script for and then a fun video to rewatch. Scripted content is really hard to film, and the editing process took so long because I had an hour and a half of footage, which when you watch yourself for an hour and a half, it's a fucking nightmare. More than an hour and a half because I had to cut the footage from an hour and a half and then I had to keep cutting, and then there was a lot of graphics that had to be added and it was exhausting, but I think the final product was well worth it. So, and then the next question is, how does it feel coming back to YouTube after a break? I think coming back to YouTube is very strange. So up until February of this year, 2022, if you're not watching it, 2022, I had been posting pretty much a video every single week for over a year straight. And granted, there were some weeks that I missed, not gonna lie, but I did also do Vedif, which is a video every single day in February, which was very taxing for me. And then I didn't take a break after that. I just went back to my usual Thursday posting schedule, and it was very difficult. I think I should have taken a break much earlier. I think I should have taken a break in October after I made my last videos. I think I should have posted my NaNoWriMo survival kit video and then taken a break for the rest of the year. I think at that point I was really burnt out on YouTube and really burnt out on just making videos. I just didn't have a lot of content ideas and I felt really stale and all this kind of stuff. So I should have taken a break much earlier than I did, but I was running NaNoWriMo, and that was also, I think, a contributing factor to my burnout in fantasy as well as in YouTube. It kind of came at the same time. Coming back to YouTube kind of feels like coming home. I've always loved making videos. If I didn't, I wouldn't have been making a video every single week for over a year, and now I'm making a video every single week, continuing to. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it, which is just simply the truth. If I don't like something, I'm not gonna do it. Coming back to YouTube is always a little bit tricky and a little bit difficult because I was personally worried about putting this expectation on myself to make videos that were the same as the content before, and I truly felt that I had to come up with content ideas that were very different than what I was originally working with, because I think I'd outgrown a little bit of the content that I'd made, or I'd become a little bit tired of it. Not tired of the platform, not tired of making content, but I was getting a little bit tired of the content that I was creating, and I wasn't making content that I was super proud of, which was the exact opposite of what Vedif was supposed to teach me. And I think Vedif did teach me that for a while, and I think from March until, I don't know, August, I was really happy with the content that I was producing. And then I hit a writing slump, and it was really, really difficult to get out of that. So coming back to YouTube, I want to be more conscious of the content that I am creating. I want to be more conscious of how that content makes me feel. And in general, I want to be producing high quality content I enjoy, which is sometimes difficult because I oftentimes very harshly judge the ideas that I have for content and don't make a lot of the things that I would love to make because I'm worried that no one cares. Like, I have several videos in my video bank that I'm just like, do I want to post this? Like, and I've just had to learn to say fuck it, I think is the thing. Because I made a video, the video I posted last week is my romance TBR, which I really considered not posting, which is silly because it's a fine video. But I was like, it's not groundbreaking, it's not funny, it's not interesting, like it's just me talking about what books I'm gonna read because I'm suddenly in a romance mood. But again, like, I'm gonna make this content, and you can never predict the algorithm, you can never predict what people are gonna like, and like most art, YouTube is subjective. The kinds of videos that we enjoy and we consume oftentimes are very different, and I consume different kinds of media differently. I judge gaming videos a lot different than I judge AuthorTube videos because I watch gaming videos for very specific reasons, and if I'm not getting those specific reasons, I'm not gonna watch. Whereas with AuthorTube, if I'm not connecting to the person, I'm not gonna watch them again. But if it's my friends, I'm gonna watch those videos because I love interacting with my friends. And even though I'm terrible at commenting on videos, I'm so sorry, I've probably watched your video, but I haven't commented because I'm a terrible commenter. I think a big part of it is I have to make content that I would enjoy watching, and sometimes I just don't make content that I enjoy watching because I think it's something that's more popular or something that someone else is gonna enjoy. And you know, I think it's good to make content like that sometimes. It's good to make content that other people will enjoy because I think sometimes as content creators, that's kind of the point, is to make videos that make other people feel good, or you know, are escapism or are giving advice. I was very anxious about posting my I wrote a book in secret video, and that was not a video I felt like I would have posted had I been ultra critical. But after getting the comments on that video, I realized it was a very important video to post and a very important video for my channel and my growth and my development. I think capturing that point in my life will be really amazing to look back on in like 10 or 15 years. Even if all the information in it is just completely fucking crazy and all of the advice I gave is not advice I've given 10 or 15 years, but a lot of YouTube is a time capsule. And I think being less critical with myself and the moments and memories I want to capture is an integral part of my current hope on YouTube, which is why this video is going to be very long, and I'm basically just going to be cutting out the dead air or the ums and stuff. But I think it's important to be honest with the content that you create, and that is the feelings that I have towards coming back to YouTube. Because not that the content I was posting before wasn't honest, but there is definitely an aspect of it that was not what I wanted, and I was posting just to post, and now I'm gonna post things that I want to post. And sometimes with posting stuff, it is hard to post things because I feel like I haven't done my best on them, and I'm a little bit on a timeline crunch. It's like I need to get a video out on Thursday. Sometimes it's not gonna happen, you know, and then I have to push a video back, and then there's no video. And I feel this way about vlogs. Vlogs are really difficult for me to film because I feel like I should be filming them for a long time, but then I'm like, when is this video gonna come out? But I've gotten some great advice from some friends on that, so hopefully there'll be more long form vlog content in the future. That was a really long answer to that question. The next is the personal category, where y'all asked 3 questions that were personally about me. And we're gonna do this. So one of these is actually a little bit more writing related, but it's also kind of related to the personal life stuff, so that's why I threw it in here. And it is, as a fellow writer, getting out of a writing slump can be very hard sometimes. Would you say it's necessary to rest and take a break, or is it needed for you to force yourself to keep the flow going, especially when you're in the midst of writing a book? This question is very personal. It's gonna vary for every single person, and I don't think you should always take my advice on this. Always take my advice with a grain of salt. And I would also say, especially take my advice with a grain of salt if you're not someone who is particularly like me in process. If you're unaware, I am a workaholic and a perfectionist, but mostly gonna be talking about workaholism. And the thing is, and it was funny, I actually kind of pinpointed this the other day because I've been trying to explain why I don't really think people should be aspiring towards working a lot and being a workaholic like me, because even though I have a lot of content and things that I've produced and made to show for it, I don't think it's a particularly healthy mindset for myself and for me. So my workaholism is very much split into twofold. One is the fact that I am in fact chronically ill, and so I'm always worried that I'm going to hit a slump and I'll never come out of it, and I just want to make as much content I can before I hit another dip in my health and I am knocked flat on my ass and just very unhappy. And the second aspect of it is the fact that I am constantly thinking, which this will tie into a question that's a little bit later, but my thoughts are, I have a lot of them all the time. I'm constantly thinking about many things. I sent a voice message the other day talking about all of the things that I was thinking about. So, you know, I was thinking about the book I'm currently writing, the book I'm revising, the book after that, the book after that, those 2 books. I was thinking about my fantasy project. I was thinking about the Wrath King. I was thinking about this video. I was thinking about the next video I'm gonna make. I was thinking about making a vlog. I was thinking about all the romance books I want to read. I was thinking about tennis. I was thinking about the match that I was watching. I was thinking about the match that was coming on after. I was thinking about the fact that I have many scripts to write. I was thinking about what kind of genre I'm going to do for my next first page critique. I was thinking about the fact that I kind of want to do a writing stream because I feel like I haven't interacted on a writing stream in a while. I was thinking about what I was going to have for lunch. I was thinking about what I was going to have for dinner. I was thinking about what my dogs were doing. I was thinking about all of these things, you know, and it's like crazy the amount of shit that was going in my head at the same time. I was thinking about characters and these things, and I was thinking about mundane things and writing things and personal things, and so much shit that was happening inside my head that it was, you know, I oftentimes work on something to quiet all of that noise, so I just have one thing in the forefront of my brain, because the other things are spinning their wheels back there. When I'm writing or when I'm specifically working on something and I'm very focused on it, like right now, I'm very focused on what I'm saying to the camera. I'm very focused on, you know, drinking my drink and looking, you know, making sure I have my questions pulled up and my, you know, it's still recording and, you know, everything looks good. And, you know, it's a lot of things that I'm thinking about, but those are kind of more in like the middle back of my brain, whereas everything else, like my revision, all these other things, they're very much circling just in the back, but I'm not thinking about them actively. So I work on things in order to keep these thousands of thoughts from absolutely consuming me. And while that sounds nice in theory to have a lot of thoughts, it's so much fucking noise that it's a miracle I'm even able to sleep. It's a miracle I'm able to carry a conversation because there's so many things in my head that I'm just constantly thinking about, always, all the time. It never stops. And so for me, taking a break is never really taking a break. Taking a break for me is just, now I'm forced to sit with all of those thoughts all the time. And that's not really a restful day, you know? Like, a restful day for me is letting myself write whatever the fuck I want. It's letting myself go and do all of my Pinterest things and write character profiles or edit a video or write a script for a video or, you know, just talk to my friends for a really long time. Oftentimes my breaks are not really breaks. They're still active things that I'm doing with my brain. For me, taking a break is oftentimes going to create more noise than if I just kept going, either on a current project or on a different project, which is why I think I switch projects so often, because when I have a problem with one, I'll switch to another thing and then it'll still be worrying in the back, but I'm not worrying about it. For me and my tendencies, being a workaholic is a necessary evil for me to actually feel like I'm not going to be overwhelmed by every single thought in my head. But for anyone else who that's not an issue, or that's not your problem, I think taking a break can be very beneficial. I really think it can be. That's my stance on it. For me, myself and I, being in a writing slump is very much an issue of I'm trying to force myself to work on something that I shouldn't be working on in that moment, and I should just switch projects, which is something I kind of had to come to terms with because I do become exhausted. I do think I burn out on things, and I do wonder if I will burn out eventually. But even if I do burn out, the thoughts are still going to be there. And they're not intrusive thoughts. I should make that clear. It's not like I'm having intrusive thoughts or anything, like compulsive intrusive thoughts. It's just more of like I'm constantly thinking of things and I can't make my brain stop thinking of them all the time. It's not a bad thing. It is just, I'm never, like, why would I take a vacation? Because I can't take a vacation for myself. This is something that V.E. Schwab talks about all the time. I think she's very similar in her writing process, and I feel very similarly and very strongly to that. So I think if that's who you are, I think you can embrace it. But I think if you're not, do what your body needs. Do what you feel right about. If you need to take a break and just watch all of America's Next Top Model, do it. That's my stance on it for myself personally. The next question is, have you ever experienced severe anxiety or any sort of mental health problems? And if yes, how would you describe it? So I think a lot of what I just described is anxiety. I have experienced a lot of anxiety, and I always talk about my anxiety as very much this physical reaction to something that is happening in my brain, which is strange if you've never experienced that. But a lot of my anxiety, it happens and it makes me feel physically ill. It makes me feel like I'm gonna throw up or I can't breathe. And it's very scary sometimes to do that, to know that. Whereas my depression is very much the opposite, where if I am going through a depressive episode, it is as if I can't move. It is as if my brain is sluggish, cotton molasses in January. I just end up staring at a wall and feeling like anything I do is just not worth doing, because why would I want to do something if it's just not going to be perfect? Just part of my depression. But I think a lot of my fighting of that comes from the fact that I've dealt with it for the majority of my life. I'm always kind of open to talking about those. If you want to hear a little bit more about that, I have a video where I talk about my chronic illness and writing, because I think a lot of my depression stems from my chronic illness and the fact that a lot of my life was stolen from me because of it. And then just when I was getting my life back on track, a pandemic happened and stole even more of my life from me. So I take medication for it now and I feel a lot better. Not perfect, not great all the time, but much, much better than if I wasn't doing it at all. So I hope that describes it a little bit. It's a lot easier for me to describe things in books. I do give my characters mental health problems sometimes. That is one of the reasons why I like to write certain characters, because I can explore my own feelings without having to reflect inwardly on me specifically. I can reflect on my characters, if that makes sense. And finally, we're gonna end with a fun one since that one was a little bit serious. What's a book you will always recommend? And the book that I will always recommend to everyone is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. It's my favorite book of all time. Absolutely incredible, amazing, spectacular, wonderful, never been better. I love that book so much. I truly think there is something in it for everyone. It is very fast-paced. It has a great non-linear structure. It is great for writers. It's great for readers. It's super fun. There's so many deep themes. It has a morally gray protagonist. It's great. I love Vicious. And yes, that is the end of my Q&A. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it all the way to this point, thank you so much. Now's the point in the video where I get very sentimental and very sappy about my channel. I thank you so much for watching. If you have joined yesterday or if you've been here since the first terrible video where I did my AuthorTube newbie tag in this shirt on the floor in front of my bookcase, which has changed millions of times by then. It's funny watching that video back. I just watched like 5 seconds of it and I cringed out of it. So thank you for not choosing that option. Thank you for choosing a Q&A instead. I have been on YouTube now for over 2 years. It has been a ride. It's been a journey. I've met so many amazing people. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you for commenting if you've ever commented. Thanks for liking, subscribing, sticking with it, listening to me rant, ramble, and talk about things that I care about. Thank you for sticking with me through hiatuses, vetus, and some frankly terrible videos in the beginning. But we all got to start somewhere. And if you're still watching this and you haven't started a YouTube channel and you're thinking about it at all, definitely do it. My life changed completely because I was bored and upset about the fact that I'd lost my writing community because of the pandemic, and I found another beautiful writing community that I am so grateful for every single day, and I truly could not have done it without all of you who watch me. So I know, sentimental and mushy for one day a year. So thank you for watching me. Cheers to another year. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.